It is 8 minutes past 8, and we have Dr. John on the line from Creation Ministries International. He can answer your questions. Any questions in regards to evolution or maybe dinosaurs, aliens, all sorts of questions. Just send them through to us. Send them through to our text line, 0401 949 949. Now, we also talk about stuff that's come out in the news over the last few weeks, and there's been some interesting stuff about feral pigs. Dr. John, oh, by the way, good morning, Dr. John.
Yeah, good morning, Mick. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Yeah, I mean, lockdown, it's pretty tough for everybody, right? But
yeah, absolutely. I think we're all feeling the effects of it. But look, hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel. We can't see much light, and we hope it's not an oncoming train.
Well, the good news is the light is in the book. We can open up the Bible while we've got this extra time, and there's plenty of light in there.
Yeah, absolutely, Mick. That's where I get all my information, and it's the book that you use to correct all the false ideas that you get. Because particularly when it comes to the history of this planet, the history of mankind, where we all came from, that's all set out in our Bibles. And we hear a completely different narrative from the scientific world. But if we trust what the Bible says, then we're not going to go very far wrong.
That's absolutely right. Yes, and tell us about the feral pigs, Dr. John.
Yeah, look, I was having a look at the science news, Mick, and by the way, I'd encourage everybody to, all the listeners, to text in your questions. We really want to address your questions on air rather than the things that I find that I think might be interesting to people. But look, I found this article in The Conversation about feral pigs. And feral pigs, I mean, obviously, we're all familiar with domestic pigs, but feral pigs are found in every continent except Antarctica. And the estimate for the numbers of them that we've got here in Australia is about 3 million. I mean, that's quite a lot of feral pigs. And they're extremely cunning, and they quickly learn to avoid traps. So eradicating them anywhere is a very, very difficult job.
Yes.
But the article was actually focusing on the extent to which feral pigs contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. And it claimed that they contributed as much as about 1 million cars. Can you believe it? And
I find it difficult.
Yeah, I do too. And, of course, we know that cars contribute through their exhaust systems. And when I read the article, I assumed that it would be referring to the pigs' exhaust systems. Because, as you know, cows have been blamed for producing a whole lot of methane. And I presumed they might have been talking about pigs' bowel gases, just like they were with the cows. But apparently, no, it's got nothing to do with what they're expressing out of their rear ends. It's actually to do with the ground and the damage they do to it as they go around rooting in it with their tusks and snouts and all of that. Now, I didn't realise this, but apparently any disturbance of the soil releases a lot of carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide supposedly is trapped in soil. Now, obviously, humans do a lot of disturbing of soil as well. I mean, we do lots of excavations and building, and farmers go around ploughing their fields and so on. But it seems that a herd of pigs can do every bit as much soil disturbing as the farmer does with his tractor. And when they've been through a field, it's just as if it's been freshly ploughed. And because the pigs are pretty social animals, they tend to congregate in groups. So you might get quite a large herd of feral pigs going to a particular paddock. And according to this article, the amount of land that they destroy is enormous. Worldwide, it's equivalent to about the the size of the island of Taiwan.
Yeah.
Now, Taiwan is not a small island. It's about a quarter to a third the size of England. So, if you can imagine an amount of land equal to about a third the size of England, that's a pretty substantial amount of damage that they can do.
Absolutely.
And that's just the damage they do to the soil and the associated release of carbon dioxide. Of course, they do heaps of damage to crops and native vegetation, so they're really one of the greatest pests on the planet. And it's interesting, isn't it, that right throughout history, people have been out hunting wild pigs. If you go through some of the art galleries in Europe, you see lots of paintings of people returning from a hunt. Yep. And they've often got the carcasses of wild boars or other pigs. So apart from the danger that they pose to mankind, because they're quite dangerous creatures if you encounter a big one, yep. Then people have been out hunting them and trying to eradicate them for a long time, but it hasn't worked, and there are plenty of them around. Mm. And as the article said, eradicating feral pigs would be equivalent to taking about 1 million cars off the road. So it would certainly be a huge contribution.
Yes.
Now, as you know, at Creation Ministries, we're not quite as certain that carbon dioxide is a bad gas. We don't believe it's quite as bad as a lot of the environmentalists think it is, because carbon dioxide, of course, is absolutely essential for plant growth.
Yep.
And you would think that if carbon dioxide was elevated a bit more, then vegetation would be likely to be enhanced. So we're not so sure that rising carbon dioxide is quite the problem that a lot of the environmentalists think it is.
Well, quite often you see in some of the news stories, they actually talk about how certain plants actually thrive with higher carbon.
Yeah, well, that's right. And look, I know that probably the best contribution to absorbing carbon dioxide would be stopping the deforestation of the Amazon rainforests. Mm. But look, I'm a bit surprised too that you don't hear much advocation for growing bamboo. Where I live, there's a stand of bamboo fairly close, and the bamboo roots track along the ground, and the shoots poke up. And I've seen in summertime some of these shoots, and they look as if they grow nearly 6 inches in a day. Mm. And I've felt some of those bamboo rods, and they're pretty solid. Now, we need to remember that plant material is made of cellulose, and we'll talk about that when we come back.
Absolutely. You're with Dr. John from Creation Ministries International, answering your questions, anything about creation, evolution, or all sorts of things. Just send your questions through to our text line 0401 949 949. And we have Dr. John in the studio from Creation Ministries International talking to us this morning a little bit about greenhouse gases. And you mentioned the Amazon, Dr. John. Stuff that I've been reading recently says that they're getting more carbon dioxide is being released from the Amazon than over the past decade. They're saying there's more released than it actually captures nowadays.
Well, I wonder if that's because the fields are being ploughed, because there's been a lot of talk about the Amazon rainforest being cut down, and presumably it's to increase the amount of farmland that's available. And maybe it's the ploughing of the farmland that then releases the carbon dioxide.
And the burning of the timber as well, I believe.
Sorry?
The burning of the timber as well.
Yes, there. Of course, that's what they're doing with the timber, and it would be releasing a lot of carbon dioxide. Mm. But I was talking about what I've been observing with the growth of bamboo. And I mean, everybody knows that bamboo is a grass, and it's the fastest growing plant on the planet. And I've seen some of these bamboo shoots grow maybe 4 to 6 inches in a day. It's just enormous. And of course, the tough structure of trees is lignin, which is a carbohydrate. And for bamboo and grasses and things, it's cellulose, which is another carbohydrate. And these are the sort of things that would lock up a lot of carbon dioxide. So I would have thought that if you really wanted to do a bit of locking up of carbon dioxide, it would be great to plant stands of bamboo around the place, because they really, really do grow very fast. But look, what we were really talking about, of course, was feral pigs and the effect that they're having on the planet by rooting in the ground and disturbing it and releasing a lot of carbon dioxide. And so eradicating feral pigs really has to be done, apparently, to save the planet. So there we have it. Get the hunting gear out and go chasing down the feral pigs up there in Queensland. And, well, of course, we can't go to Queensland at the moment, can we? So we can't do our bit at saving the planet by eradicating feral pigs. We need to tell all our friends up in Townsville and Cairns to get out there and go pig shooting.
Yes, now I've seen, Dr. John, they're in China now. They're actually breeding pigs in multi-storey buildings. So I can only assume that doing it that way, that's obviously pig farming, that it's much better for the environment.
Well, I mean, if you think of George Orwell's book Animal Farm, where the pigs took over, if they're building multi-storey apartments for the pigs, it looks as though that's coming to pass, doesn't it? I wonder if they're living in luxury in these multi-storey apartments.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a bit of a pig with a view. They probably I can't imagine they've got any balconies, but I'm sure there'd be windows.
Yeah, and I don't think it'd be very pleasant to go having a barbecue on the roof.
No, not particularly. Yes, you're with Dr. John from Creation Ministries International. We're answering your questions. Send them through to our text line 0401 949 949. Or maybe you've seen some interesting news over the last week or so that we can talk about on air. Please let us know all about it. Just send us an SMS 0401 949 949. You're on 94.9 and we have Dr. John on the line from Creation Ministries International, who's here to answer all your questions. Of course, you can go to creation.com. They've got lots of answers on there. But if you have a question, we'd like to hear it. Just send the question through to our text line 0401 949 949. Now, Dr. John, in the last few weeks, there's been quite a few stories across the internet about basically should we be bringing extinct species back. It's called de-extinction. I saw a story that was from Berkeley University in California, and they were talking about like passenger pigeons, woolly mammals, Neanderthals. They say they're all extinct, but what if we could bring them back? And if we could, should we? And, of course, you've seen a story about Tasmanian tigers. And, there's some, I guess, ethical questions there. It's really interesting. I believe they call it cloning, which isn't the cloning that I know about. This is where they actually get a nucleus from a preserved cell from the extinct species and swap it into an egg without a nucleus of the nearest species or nearest sort of living relative, and then bringing them back to life. It's all pretty weird, Dr. John.
Yeah, but it's great cutting-edge stuff, Mick. And the article I saw was along the same lines about bringing back some of these extinct species. And, of course, our favourite one here is in Australia is the Tassie tiger. Yeah, well, Tassie tigers are, we've seen so many sort of pictures and drawings, and I think there were a few very early sort of photos, but certainly nothing recently, although a few people have said that they reckon they've seen them recently, Dr. John. Yeah, well, look, I mean, the Tasmanian tiger's been declared to be extinct because there haven't been any confirmed sightings for nearly 90 years. And, of course, you often read reports of claimed sightings, but even though there's been a huge reward offered, nobody's ever managed to claim it until now. And we've all seen the footage of the last known Tasmanian tiger. His name was Benjamin, and he was put in the Hobart Zoo in 1933. And, of course, at that time there was a bounty on the heads of the Tasmanian tigers, and thousands of them were shot because they were so destructive to sheep. And I think I remember reading an article some time back saying that these scientists didn't believe that the Tasmanian tiger was really big enough to take down a sheep. But, I mean, if a farmer found one of his sheep torn up in the paddock, and he knows that there are no other big predators around, because, as we know, there are no dingoes in Tasmania, never were any dingoes in Tassie. So the farmer would be quite within his rights, I think, to blame the Tasmanian tiger. Yeah. And that, of course, is why so many of them were shot. I mean, the only other carnivore in Tasmania is the Tasmanian devil, and he's only a little guy. So, the Tasmanian tiger got blamed for it. Anyway, Benjamin was a great favourite in the Hobart Zoo, and I'm sure we've all seen the footage of Benjamin roaming around his enclosure, and he apparently lived in the zoo for about 3 years. I didn't realise that, but he was there for 3 years, and he died very tragically. And apparently he got locked out of his enclosure one freezing cold night, and he died of cold exposure.
Wow!
You know, I mean, what a terrible thing to happen. And it wasn't realised at the time that he was the last ever seen of his species, the last ever live specimen. And of course, they didn't preserve his body; they just chucked it in a dumpster. And this article was talking about, and as you mentioned, you really need good cells to be able to try and clone a new species. Yeah. And they'd probably have tried to do that with a Tasmanian devil egg, getting the nucleus out of that and putting a Tasmanian tiger nucleus in it. And that would be how they would go about cloning. But, of course, there was poor old Benjamin. He would have been a great specimen to have preserved to try and do something like that because of the advances in cloning. But, alas, his body got thrown away. So, really, that is terribly tragic. But, it would have been a great opportunity to preserve his carcass and maybe restore the species. And that was what the program was all about. Anyway, we hope the Tassie tiger's not extinct.
Yes, well, I guess the question I still have, and we might get back onto that when we come back, if we could bring them back, and I guess the question is, should we? Should we bring them back? You're on 94.9. It is 19 minutes to 9. We'll be back with Dr. John shortly. It is 16 minutes to 9. You're on 94.9, and we have Dr. John on the line from Creation Ministries International. He's been talking to us this morning about bringing back animals from the past. Yes, basically extinct species, or the word is de-extinction. If you could bring them back, would you bring them back? Should you bring them back? The question I guess I've got to throw at you, Dr. John, is should you bring them back? I mean, you've already said they were an absolute pest when it came to sheep farmers. If we bring them back, they're going to be a pest to sheep farmers again. And what about woolly mammoths? They've got all that wool on them. They were great during the Ice Age, but what are they going to do now? Just sweat and end up in trouble?
Yeah, well, look, I personally hope the Tassie tiger is not extinct. I mean, it's obviously possible that there in the wilds of Tasmania they're still surviving, and it does seem a bit strange, that poor old Benjamin in the Hobart Zoo was the last remaining Tasmanian tiger on the planet. But, I mean, there have been lots of claims of sightings, as you probably know, But and a lot of scientists have gone examining the droppings that they think might have been Tasmanian tiger droppings, but I don't think they've ever actually been able to find any tiger DNA in those scats.
Now, a lot of people have said that they've seen Elvis as well, Dr. John.
Sorry, Mick, I didn't catch that.
A lot of people have said that they've seen Elvis as well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's been examining droppings that are claimed to be from Elvis. But look, I would love to find that there was a confirmed sighting of the Tasmanian tiger, but maybe it's going to be possible. I'd love to see them brought back. But it would be very, very difficult because they don't have any good preserved specimens. And I think there are a few skins around that they have some hope about. But anyway, we'll just have to wait and see with all future developments of cloning. But the other very popular animal for which there's a bit of hope, you mentioned it before, it's the woolly mammoth. And it's well known that there are millions of frozen mammoth carcasses up there in the Siberian permafrost.
Yes.
And, of course, lots of mammoth fossils worldwide, but it's the frozen ones that they're pretty hopeful about. And Harvard University is working on a plan to try and reproduce a mammoth. Now, you mentioned before it's going to need to take the nucleus out of some related species and insert a mammoth nucleus or whatever. And apparently the related species is the Asian elephant. And what they hope to produce is a mammophant. So, I'd love to see a mammophant, because we need to remember, of course, that it's not just a simple matter of all the genetic information that's in the nucleus. There is genetic information in the cellular structures, and they would be left there. So it probably would be a mammophant if they managed to use an Asian elephant. But the Asian elephants apparently were very closely related genetically to the mammoths. Even more closely, I mean, you think that an African elephant and an Asian elephant are fairly closely related.
Yep.
But the mammoths apparently were even closer to the Asian elephant than the African elephant is.
Wow.
So they're pretty hopeful. And I can remember an article going back years ago in our Creation magazine. It was a photo of a couple of Nepalese elephants, and they had that hump at the back of the neck over the shoulder that you associate with mammoths. So there's a lot of genetic material in the Asian elephants that is fairly closely related to the mammoth. And there's a lot of scientists worldwide trying to get in on the act with various species, and they're even referring to all these proposals as some sort of ark. Now, you wonder where they might have got that name from, don't you?
Yes.
But because they actually believe the Noah's Ark story is a myth, and they've actually said that you could never get the species propagated only using one pair, one male and one female. And a lot of scientists believe that you'd need more than 50 specimens and maybe up to 1,000 for it to be effective. But of course, that's just their opinion, and the Bible is pretty clear, particularly with the unclean animals like pigs, that there were only originally two, one male and one female. So we'll talk about that a bit more when we come back too.
Well, Dr. John, I do have a question there. When it comes to all these different kinds of elephants, they're all part of the same species, but they're different kinds. Now, you've talked about in the past about how every generation we lose some of the information in our DNA. If back before Noah's Ark, all those species had all of that DNA, they could have changed into all the different kinds. But then as each kind loses more and more DNA, it can't change back into the same species. Is that sort of how it works?
No, Mick, you've actually confused the terms.
Got it upside down.
The biblical term is kind, and from kind you diversify into all the various species.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, if we take pigs, because they were an unclean animal, there would have only been one pair of the pig kind on Noah's Ark.
Mm-hmm.
But they've diversified since then into domestic pigs and the various types of feral pigs, warthogs, peccaries, the various pig types throughout the world. But what a lot of the scientists don't realise, and a lot of Christians don't realise this either, that with the other animals, the ones that we might call the clean animals, there are actually more than one pair on Noah's Ark, because the expression that we see in the Ark is sevens. So there could have been either 7 of them or 7 pairs. The Hebrew is a bit unclear.
Wow, very interesting.
But certainly more than one pair. We have the song, the animals went in 2 by 2, parley-vous, all of that stuff. And obviously they went in 2 by 2. But there were more than one pair of what were known as the clean animals.
Interesting. You're on 94.9 this morning. We're with Dr. John. It is 8 minutes to 9. We'll be back shortly. It is 5 minutes to 9, and we're with Dr. John from Creation Ministries International. He's been talking to us this morning about bringing some extinct species back again. And, of course, Harvard University are trying to do it with woolly mammoths, quite literally, as we speak. So, you'd like to see the Tasmanian tiger come back, Dr. John. Some people say they've seen one. No one's seen a woolly mammoth, and, of course, they'd be easier to find these days if there really was any, so chances are there's not. And what about dinosaurs? I mean, we know there's none of them around, but what if they could bring back a dinosaur?
Yeah, wouldn't that be interesting, Mick? And, of course, for those who've watched the Jurassic Park movies, that's exactly what happened there. But, look, I think that's a topic that we really need to explore in a bit more detail, because bringing back a dinosaur would be quite difficult because of the DNA aspect. And the article that I read mentioned how DNA does degrade rapidly, and you wouldn't be they said that there's no significant DNA left after about a little over 1 million years. I think it probably would be a lot less than that.
Yeah.
But and of course they have found DNA in dinosaur fossils, so you'd have to question about the fact that they're supposedly 65 million years old. But look, that is a topic that we can continue on next week, because there's a lot of interesting things that we need to explore. We haven't even talked about the ethical problems that might be involved in bringing back Neanderthals or whatever, it's another topic that we probably ought to explore next week, Mick.
Yeah, well, you talk about Neanderthals. They're really just human beings with different features, like sort of family groups have different features. They had different features as well.
Yeah, well, that's certainly what. Not that I think they'd be able to do it because they were humans, but you would find that if you knew the language, they'd be able to talk to you quite normally, as we do.
Yes, well, of course, if they're going to grow them from babies, they'll learn the language, in which case they'll end up being just like you and I. They're not going to walk around with the old language. Yes. Well.
Yes.
Look, so we'll talk more about this next week, and I'm sure there will be more questions because, it is a bit of an ethical dilemma. Do you bring extinct species back again? Do you bring Neanderthals back again? Dinosaurs, woolly mammoths? And what do we do with them when they come back? Obviously some species have gone by the wayside because of changes in basically in their ecosystem. Things change over time, and different groups of similar animals become, stronger and take over. So it'll be a very interesting week next week, Dr. John.
Yes, Mick, we look forward to that. And let me repeat what you said. Really encourage questions coming in about the whole ethical issue and of course, the technical issue as well. It'd be very interesting.
Yes, that number again, 0401 949 949. You are on 94.9. Thank you, Dr. John. We'll see you, or we'll talk to you again next week. It depends whether we're allowed in the studio together.
Well, yes, that does depend on that, Mick, but we look forward to next week.
All righty. It is 8:59. We've got the news and weather coming up momentarily.